This is going to change everything we know about rinascita, Cartethyia, and the Sentinel Imperator. If you followed the recent videos, you'll notice that Homer's Iliad provides some inspiration to the likes of Cartethyia, the horse divinity, and Zani. Well, that is just the tip of the iceberg, because Homer's Odyssey, the other major piece written by Homer, quite literally lays out the blueprint for what is what in rinascita, so let's talk about it. Throughout this video, there are 10 redemption codes providing 30 astride, some level materials, shell credits, and consumables. These are a special thanks to Kuro Games for providing these codes, and there will be more available in future uploads. Alright, let's start with talking about the historical name for the Divine Entities Resonator, Fleurdelys. The name Fleurdelys is documented within in-game historical scripts as the name of the Blessed Maiden and supposedly the Enlightened One. Primus Fenrico, the essay of the Resonator drama, and Cristoforo all refer to this character as Fleurdelys. Now, the Fleurdelys is a common symbol found throughout history, usually referring to a lily. Fleur and lys means flower and lily respectively in French. Cartethyia herself has this symbol as part of her design, so we know that whatever meaning this symbol holds is a guideline for Cartethia's role in the game. In real life, the lily has been a symbol of fertility and purity, a symbol that was most often associated with Virgin Mary. In Greek mythology, the lily relates to an Olympian named Hera, and in Roman mythology she is referred to as Juno. Hera, or Juno, was the consort to Zeus or Jupiter depending on which mythology you are referring to. Hera's role was the goddess of marriage, and she is most often depicted wearing a wreath. In the poetry by Homer, talking about ancient Greek beliefs, Hera is often referred to as the Virgin. This was mainly a symbol of Hera's purity. From this understanding of the Greek Hera or Roman Juno, we can establish about 25% of the layers of meaning of Fleurdelys. Those who are relatively new to Wuthering Waves lore, Kuro Games love their double meanings or layers of meaning for their names. Instead of being a goddess of marriage, this is symbolized as Cartethyia unifies two of the divine beasts, the unicorn and the leviathan. And already we can see a slight connection between marriage and union, but I wouldn't say this is enough to claim it as inspiration. One of Hera's 4 children with Zeus was Eileithyia, the goddess of childbirth. And we know that rebirth is the meaning of rinascita, so if Cartethyia is inspired from Hera, that means that what we experience in rinascita now is basically the product of Cartethia's martyrdom, or the product of Hera, which is her child, the goddess of birth.
I see you.
The next 25% of Cartethia's role is also inspired from Greco-Roman mythology, and this relates to the divine beast Fleurdelys possibly resonates with. If you've watched Troy, then you will have a good idea of the story of Achilles. Basically, Achilles was this mortal warrior who was blessed by the gods, and was even gifted a few things, one of which is the shield of Achilles. Zani, whose name means gift of God, has a shield. Achilles was also gifted 2 immortal horses born from the Zephyr wind. And the Zephyr wind is the west wind of the 4 winds, which is the winds of the gods of Anemo. With this, we begin to see how this divine beast relates to the green symbol shown with these 3 symbols throughout rinascita. Whenever this entity is shown, the green symbol is always at the top. Now, Hera, who we've established as inspiration for Fleurdelys, grants Xanthos the ability of human speech, so humans can understand what Xanthos says. Now, this is a possible connection that we can make with Fleurdelys and the divine beast shown here, signifying that there is a resonance between the two. Now, Fleurdelys may have had a second resonance awakening to seal the dark side, and this possible second resonance is with Cetus. Now, in history, Cetus is the cousin of Xanthos, one of the immortal horses, who has a more direct relation to Greek mythology as Cetus the sea monster, often portrayed as a whale that was slain by Hercules. Cetus is the offspring of 2 primordial deities, Phorcys and Ceto, and what's interesting is that Ceto is often conflated with Hecate, and Hecate in Wuthering Waves and Greek mythology is the goddess of witchcraft or limbo.
Behold that child!
And this leads us to our final 50% of Cartethia's layers of meaning, and it is the real game changer in terms of our understanding of what is really going on. Homer's Iliad introduced Xanthos and the Zephyr wind, and Homer's Odyssey, the other major piece of poetry, gives us way more insight to the Anemo and the creatures of the wind. The Anemo or the Anemoi is the term used to reference the 4 wind gods, Zephyr, Boreas, Nautos, and Euros. All of these winds were depicted as some form of horse, and they were all housed or stabled on a floating island called Aeolia. This is something we already have in Rinascita. And this is where we introduce Aelios, who is the keeper of these winds on the floating island. At the command of the greatest god, Aelios would release these winds, so the horses, to wreak devastation upon the world. So the sealing of the first wave of the dark tide draws striking similarities to the story from Homer's Odyssey. To put this simply, the sealing of the dark tide is homage to Aelios being the keeper of the winds in the floating island, waiting for the command of the greatest god to release the winds. Aelios, who had these wind gods sealed up in bronze and a black wall. Now the releasing of the winds may be the equivalent of the last wave of the dark tide, which is prophesied to come in Rinascita. And the greatest god who wanted to give this command was Hera, and it is said that she once commanded Aelios to release the winds. And then we have Hera's sacred animal, which is the peacock, because its feathers represent many eyes, whereas in Rinascita we have a seraphim, which is very similar. On the other hand, Aelios' sacred animal is the kingfisher, which looks like the cerulean bird we see on Phoebe's staff. So if you had any doubts about this, there is way too much connectivity for it not to be the true inspiration. And the last 25% of this final 50% is Cartethia's role in history as a martyr who sacrificed herself for Rinascita. Our Fleurdelys is said to have spent 3 days and 3 nights in the abyss. 3 days and 3 nights refers to when Jonah entered the whale, and the time Jesus spent in the grip of the earth or abyss before rising again. If we look at the architecture and names within Rinascita, we can see that this transition of believing in mythology to Christianity in the Roman Empire is the inspiration for Rinascita. There's reference to Elijah and Ahab. The area of the Phasalia family is homage to the Edict of Thessalonica, which made Christianity the state church instead of mythology in the ancient Roman Empire. So just to summarize, Cartethyia is this whole embodiment of different figures that are all related by association. Fleurdelys is the name of a real-life crest that is used in various organizations and religions, most often referring to a lily to symbolize purity and being free of sin. A lily is often symbolized with Hera, also known as Juno in Greco-Roman mythology, the goddess of marriage or union, which plays a part of inspiration for Cartethyia. Hera gave birth to Eileithyia, who is the goddess of childbirth. Hera also provided power to the immortal horse Xanthos, who was born from Zephyr, a deity of wind or the Anemo. This plays inspiration for why we have a horse divinity and provides some evidence that Cartethyia resonates with this horse. The floating island in-game is where the dark tide has been sealed, which is something very similar to the story of Aelios in Homer's Odyssey. And the story of Aelios ties into Cetus, Xanthos, the Harpy, the Siren, Lorelei, bronze statues, the black wall shown here, the rainbow, the glittery constellation, basically everything. The next video will be the true identity of this divinity or Trinodian. There is a very strong connection in ancient poetry that would mean it's not a hippocampus, it just looks like one. A little clue I will give is this word here. The first comment on this video that guesses this word correctly, I will DM you 10 codes for a total of 300 astrite. This opportunity is valid until my next video is published.